Trends at 12-ish.
Miss Kleanthous, Sophia Kleanthous, is my Trends at 12. Listen, it says Trends at 12. So I never started one at 12:25 before. Disabled rights campaigner, a new singer, songwriter, and we're just falling out, haven't we?
Yeah, a little bit. No, I'm not going to lie, Eddie.
just falling there. Have I ever met you before? Yes.
And then I showed you proof.
No. What? Can I do the journey, please? No, I haven't. I'd remember you. Yes, you did. I'm going to show you. It took you about 20 minutes to find.
That's why we've been waiting.
And then I say to you, the evil spirits are around me, so I'm wearing my cross. And then we look at the picture, and I'm wearing a cross.
And I said it didn't work.
You're a jinx. It's just you. You're a jinx in my life. It's because you know Gabsy.
Yeah, I do know Gabsy.
How do you go on if you're a Tottenham supporter and he's an Arsenal supporter?
No, we don't talk about it.
We've got 3 stories to get through, and you look to me like somebody who can talk. Let's start. Let's start. Love hearts on your jumper. Mean what? This is my tell London something that they should know. London, also lift London's spirits and local story. Where are we starting?
Probably the one about just something that I think people should know.
What should people know?
I think, so I wanted to talk about dating as a disabled person. So I have a walking stick. I have a number of disabilities, and it's like quite a complex environment to even date.
What does that mean? Please forgive me.
Yeah, of course.
I have a number of disabilities. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's like, so the social model of disability says that we just, we say that we're a disabled person, we're disabled by society. We have impairments, and then society is what disables us. But I think just when talking about, explaining the different impairments I have, it just makes it a bit more simple sometimes to explain it that way. But effectively, I have chronic illnesses, I have physical health conditions, and I have mental health conditions. So I am disabled by society because of the barriers that have been put in, but the impairments.
So what I'd like to do with you is that you and me in here, you do what you want to do. The only thing that I want when people come in, obviously we know the rules of what we say, how we say it, and all of that. But be you. Sure. Be you. Because I could see you were slightly off-centre. Tell me, I don't want to get into the dating or disabled and then break it. So quickly tell me about Inclusion London.
Yeah, Inclusion London is an amazing charity. It's called a DPO, which is a disabled persons organisation. And basically what we do is it means that we are run by and for disabled people. So unlike disability rights charities, there has to be a certain percentage of disabled people in an organisation to be a DPO. DDPO, which is a deaf and disabled persons organisation. And we kind of follow the social model of disability, which says that what we have are impairments, and then we are disabled by society or societal attitudes, that kind of thing. So I'm like a new trustee of Inclusion London. We're doing a lot of work around the benefits reform that's happening at the moment, the Assisted Dying Act, a lot of other things around travel, and there's a lot of things that we're just focusing on. And we are like a membership organisation, so we work with DPOs all around London and nationally as well. So we do local influencing and national influencing as well, and a lot of housing stuff as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Just get rid of Gabsy from that organisation.
Gabsy's great.
No, he's not. Get rid of it. I don't understand what's happened. I've come to really love him, and and he referred you, which means that you must be okay as well. And I'll insult you, which doesn't mean that I don't like it. It means that I quite like it. And we need to. At the end of this, we will talk about if there is any one thing you would like people to bear in mind in relation to people who have challenges. As I call it, in and around London.
Sure.
Dating while disabled. That's something to look forward to hearing about. That comes after we've heard what's on London's roads. I think it's Fifi. I've really guessed Sophia, and I am talking to her about a mutual friend of ours, somebody I think put us in touch with each other. He's also a disabled rights campaigner, a man called Adam Gabsy. And I am explaining to Sophia, although she's not having it, that when I have gone to Arsenal with Adam, it has done, so far as I can see, as much as it can that in that moment, once we get to that car park, right? Once we go, because you've got to go through the car park past some proper cars, we get in that lift and we go out there, there is nothing disabled about him. He's as annoying as any human being could possibly be. And that's kind of what we want, wouldn't it? On a meritocracy, people to be able to be themselves. Is that right?
Human, absolutely. Yeah, like disabled people can be like anything. Like,
anything.
Disabled people can be, very sarcastic. Disabled people don't have I have dark humour, and I think a large part to do with being disabled because you've experienced so much, and you just sort of go, okay, cool.
That kind of there is something in that, isn't there? Like a coping mechanism.
Yeah, I think so.
Right,
it's kind of rewriting the narrative.
So, are you dating other disabled people?
Yeah, I have in the past.
No, in this particular story. So, sorry, I should tell everybody, if you just tune in. Sophia's going to, one of her 3 stories on our Trends at 12 is dating while disabled. Now, is it one particular experience or are we doing an overview?
Just an overview. I think it's easier. Yeah.
Do I know? Not me. Let's not make it me because, I'm an Adonis and I don't want anybody to think that, they're aiming above there. Right. Does the person know that you're coming in with Nancy or whatever the
overview, not of dating in general, not just like
so it's not personal.
No.
Well,
I wouldn't do
that's
that.
what I want. Well, no, but that's what I want. I want a personal story for goodness sake. Okay, all right.
I can give a couple of hints. I think like the best way I can describe it is, when you go to amusement park and you go in a ghost train and like you kind of like, oh, it's it's going to be it could be a bit scary, it could be a bit funny, so you're kind of like on the train and like you're just waiting for the door to open, and as the door opens you're like, there's almost like a kind of jump scare of like, okay, what's this person going to say? And then you do another one, it's like, what's this person going to say? And a lot of that comes from whether or not you decide to disclose your disability. So a lot of disabled people, they have the option of disclosing their disability. So showing photos, for example, that show their adaptions or aids, and choosing not to. And that's a completely personal choice. And I think for me at the beginning, I didn't show my walking stick and I didn't talk about my disability. And so I was constantly on this ghost train of like, waiting for these like doors to open, and once the doors, I was like constantly like, oh god, is this going to be like really bad, or is this going to be, are they going to take it well? So after a while of dating, and dating apps can be a real minefield when you're disabled, because I went from having, like most people in general, you get quite a lot of likes, matches, that kind of things, and then the difference in when I did disclose and started talking about my disability and started saying that I was disabled, chronically ill, and showing a picture with my walking stick, suddenly it hit like a brick. And it was incredibly humbling because I was like, okay, right, that was a shock. Humbling might be the wrong word, but it was shocking, but it was also like, okay, I can, at least this, reduces me having to do the whole being on that train and constantly like having the jump scare over and over and over again. So I felt like now for me, and this is completely personal, but I do disclose, I have pictures with my stick, I say, but I try and make it lighter so people don't immediately see it as a negative, because I think society sort of sees disability, which they shouldn't, and disabled people in a negative light. But there is a narrative shift at the moment, which is really positive, that's sort of looking at like, what can society do to improve it? And I think as a disabled person, it shouldn't be on me to try and, make it better for myself. But I think because we're not there societal wise of like attitudinal understanding of disability, what I do for my own personal journey is that I have those pictures and I joke about it, and I sort of say, I even make a joke on some of my profiles and things like that about falling over, just kind of silly things like that, and say that I match my sticks with my outfits. And I've had people ask me if my stick is an accessory. So I think it's just like, it's like really changing the narrative around what you want disability dating to be like. But it is a really, really tough experience, because especially for disabled women, because you're facing just so many questions about, can you sleep with someone, can you will it affect the other individual, and I think it's such a mindful.
How does that? Sorry, how does that one work?
Which one?
But will it affect the other person?
I think it's quite an interesting conversation, because when I first had those questions and people would just message me at the first message going, how will my disability, how will you being disabled affect me? And I was like, oh God, oh dear.
You should immediately cancel that. That's not the person.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's an idiot.
Yes, and there's a lot of idiots in the world.
Well, oh gosh. Oh, you're difficult.
Okay.
See, what you've done, right, is you caused me a problem.
Okay.
Because clearly what you were talking about is a whole subject in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I will feel like I offend you.
No.
You don't know what I'm going to say.
I don't.
Believe me, I have an innate ability. Ask my boss to be able to, even when I don't intend to offend people. Just hear me out, and I want you to do what you want to do. I think that is a fascinating and huge subject. And if we have 8 minutes left, I personally would like to dedicate all 8 minutes to that. I'm no longer interested in your local story, in a way. Well, not as interested. I don't mean I'm not interested. And I'm not as interested in the story that lifts London spirits. But I am fascinated and I am nervous about having this conversation with you, because it's one I've always wanted to have, but I've never had. So don't take off your jacket like that. What do you think we're going to do?
It's time.
Just taking off a jacket. No, we're not going to, you and I are not going to do, don't take off any clothes, okay? That's not what we're doing, right?
Too hot.
Right. Can we just stay on this? We've got a young lady who works here who, though acts as though she's not, it clearly defines herself, in my opinion anyway, through her disability. Betty, and we have the most fascinating conversations, although we never had this one, not on air.
Yeah.
If you two people are meeting, isn't it fair to disclose something which might in any way, shape or affect impact on what might happen on that night? Is that unreasonable?
I think it's a very individual experience. So for me, I remember one time I was called a catfish because I met up with someone and I was like, at the time, really struggling with walking, and so I was limping a little bit. And I think that in itself, I didn't feel like I needed to. And then I now disclose because that makes me comfortable, in the sense of I'm not going to get that shock on, like, when I actually meet them, then they're not going to get the shock and I'm not going to get the shock. They'll know what's
your shock?
So I think my shock is being called a catfish.
Creating this scenario, because you've clearly been on a journey.
Yeah.
And it may well be a journey that somebody listening to this program is on for themselves. And what we're not going to say is that all disabled people react the same way in every. We're not doing that, right? We're talking about you. What was the walking on a tightrope? What was the, oh my God, I don't know what was the jeopardy like when you didn't disclose?
It was basically because I was getting messages sort of that were quite things like, oh, can we go on a hike, or can we do these kinds of things? And I think even though I was, I'm just, fairly fit in general, but and I'm healthy to a point, but it was kind of trying to explain to them that may not be something I was able to do. And would that remove their interest in me? There were times when, like, for example, when I went on one day and had just started using my walking stick again, because I'm dynamically disabled, which means that some days I need it, some days I don't. Most of the time now I do. There was a lot of kind of questions about kind of what was I in pain right now? What was my medical history? And I think a lot of disabled people, myself included, find it quite sometimes uncomfortable to share something very, very personal about, like, your medical history. And I think the way that we sort of see disability in society is that, it's almost like intrigue of like, oh, what's and this question that I always get just outside of dating, just in general, what's wrong with you? And it's like, if we change that narrative and sort of say, okay, when a woman, for example, goes on a date and you sort of see her with a mobility aid, instead of sort of asking those questions like, what's wrong with you and like, why do you have that? Just find out them as a person. I think that's the best thing I can sort of say is, whenever I've approached it as I'm disabled, but this is not my entire identity. It's an important part of my identity. And it's something I'm actually, for example, proud of, because it's kind of been something I've championed around in my career and like my writing. But I think when I've met up with people and had those like kind of those shock moments have been, okay, when I'm walking towards that person, for example, will they suddenly decide that like they saw those photos and then they've changed their mind that it's too much? Like I've disclosed things to people and they've told me, oh, this is just too much for me to handle, which is fine. It's like, everyone's human.
Could I argue, and I'm not, but could I argue that anybody who was different, who was other, would have that same anxiety? If I was overweight, if I was black, if I was short, anybody who was, I am not minimizing or trivializing it, would I not have a similar anxiety, do you think?
I think so, but I think if we look at even just accessibility as well, so a lot of it would be someone would ask to meet me in a location that might not even be accessible for me. There might be a chance that like when I've had like issues with my hearing sometimes, and I lip read quite a lot. And I don't count myself as having a hearing loss, but I have had issues with my hearing most of my life. And if the lights are low and it's dim and I can't lip read as well. So it's like, there's so many complications to, yes, there are other obviously factors of people, who in your term kind of, look different to the norm that we've been presented for dating, which obviously is a deeper conversation. But I would say that any kind of form of anyone who is disabled, every time you go anywhere, you have to like look at all of these factors. And also if I go to a date and because I'm concerned that like, maybe I meet up with them and they might handle it badly, that them handling it badly could trigger me, which triggers my pain. So I have like what's called fibromyalgia, and that is often linked to can be linked to trauma and PTSD, and if I get triggered or upset or something, it can cause me to be in pain for a week. No, not at all.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
That's not my aim here.
No, not at all.
No, but it's important to me.
I appreciate that.
Because I would. If I turned up on a date with somebody and they had a walking stick, I would think it would be rude of me not to acknowledge the fact that they had a walking stick.
Yeah, and it's okay to acknowledge.
I think it would be, but then I need to get into and language has changed, right? Yeah. I have it on this. The kind of language I was using 22 years ago, how I use now. I check on people. I ask them if it's all right to ask them a thing. But I make mistakes, and people will make mistakes. And what might be all right to ask you might not be all right to ask somebody else. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think if we treat everyone as individuals, as we should in general, especially with dating. I mean, if you asked, is it okay for me to ask you about this? I think that would be a nice way of doing it. I think if you immediately ask something that's quite negative or centers yourself in that individual's experience of being disabled, like for example, I've been asked like, how would this affect me? Can you explain like what would happen if we went on a date for me? And it's like, okay, I understand that.
I think most of the guys I know, right? I might be a guy of a certain age. Can we have sex? Is it going to affect?
Yeah, that's a common question. Yeah,
but that's kind of what I think. I'm afraid. I'm sorry, and again, broad strokes.
That's okay.
That would be a thing. Give me some time with this, and I'm going to need your help. You've got Ella and Sarah's thing, right?
Yeah.
I want to do this subject because I'm a bit uncomfortable, and I think we've uncovered something that I haven't gone anywhere near to giving anybody who's got a disabled child, girlfriend, friend, or anybody like you who's going through it. But you do have feelings. You do have urges. Certain times you do have a little itch, and you do have
the misnomer that disabled people aren't sexual and don't like sex is incorrect. Like there's a lot of kind of
be careful where you go now. Just leave it there.
I will. I was going to say
the next bit of it's going to get me.
No, not at all.
Email,
all I was going to say is that like everyone, disabled people can and want sex. It may just be in a different way to what you know, and I think it's just about meeting people in their needs.
Yeah. We're going to talk about this again, right? Just give me a minute. Let me think about, and you need to help me. So you're now at the top table. You're now going to be editing a No, but what I mean is, there's no point in me doing it and not knowing what I'm doing. You help me. Here are the things that people say to me. Why do they do it? And I promise you we'll come to it. Sorry it wasn't the way that you thought it was going to be, but
no, not at all.
Lots of the interviews with me are like that. And why did your team beat my team? Because your team are rubbish as
well. No comment.
So let's do this again soon, because I've got loads of questions. It's just that I've got to get to this quickly. It's 40 years of EastEnders. Do you watch it? Have you ever watched it?
Yeah, a little bit, but not like I'm not like.
Yeah, no, hey.
I feel like I should though because my friends keep messaging me.
Is there a moment, a person, a thing?
I think it was. I just like. Is it? No, I can't remember. I think there was a. No, because all of them are like really depressing. All the scenes that I can think of are just like...
that works for me.
Hollyoaks was my bag.
That's why I stopped watching. So, did I say that? I'm on the BBC saying, off with his head. Peter Tatchell coming up next.